It was a shocking story that sent ripples through the entire crypto industry. In just 10 days, in November of 2022, FTX, the influential crypto exchange, had collapsed. The catalyst for this downfall was an article that broke on CoinDesk, which brought to light that the trading firm Alameda Research, whose $14 billion or so in assets run by Sam Bankman-Fried and Caroline Ellison, had $5 billion in FTT token, the token created by FTX. The report sparked concern across the industry as it illustrated that Alameda's investment foundation had such a large position in FTT. FTX had invented this token, and so Alameda was not backed by anything substantial like a fiat currency like the dollar or another stable cryptocurrency like Tether. This raised questions about just how solvent any of Bankman-Fried's companies were, because it means that the valuation of the companies was based on their own metrics, using their own tokens, and not on, say, the value of the dollar. This was a huge development. Then, on November 6th, Binance, the world's largest crypto exchange, stated that it would be selling its stake in FTT tokens worth around $529 million, or 23 million FTT. All this on the heels of the CoinDesk article. Binance's CEO, popularly known as CZ, explained that the decision to offload the exchange's FTT position was based on trade management procedures they put in place following the utter collapse of the Terra Luna crypto token, another major crypto token to fail earlier this year. It was a bold move and one that sent a clear message. Binance was not taking any chances with its investments in FTT. But at the same time, we have to assume he knew his selling would crush FTX, his major competitor. But the jury is still out on that. It was a crisis that unfolded with alarming speed. One day, FTX was a seemingly thriving cryptocurrency exchange, and the next, it was experiencing a cash crunch and what is called a liquidity crisis. It simply didn't have the money to cover the withdrawals. As investors and customers scrambled to withdraw their funds, it was clear that something had gone terribly wrong. Sam Bankman-Fried, the founder and CEO of FTX, tried to reassure investors that the company's assets were just fine. But it was too late. The contagion was well on its way, and customers slammed the exchange with withdrawals in the billions of dollars. As the crisis deepened, Bankman-Fried frantically searched for bailout money from various investors, but it was no use. In a desperate move, he turned to Binance, his largest rival, and the ones who precipitated this sell-off as a last-ditch effort to save the company. On November 8th, Binance announced that an agreement to purchase some assets off of FTX has been reached. It was a non-binding agreement, of course. It was a bold move and one that seemed to offer a lifeline to FTX, and maybe, just maybe, the company's customers would be made whole. But it never happened. The next day, Binance announced that it was backing out of the deal because once it did its due diligence, it realized there was a lot of trouble here, that customer funds were mismanaged, company and customer funds were intermingled, and this was a clear violation. This news shook the entire industry, and people were left wondering what would happen next. With Binance out of the picture, it was unclear who, if anyone, could save FTX, and things started to move quickly after that. On November 10th, the securities regulatory body in the Bahamas froze the assets of FTX Digital Markets, the subsidiary that was located there. Sam Bankman-Fried was frantically seeking around $8 billion to save the exchange, but to no avail. To add even more pressure on FTX, the California Department of Financial Protection and Innovation made it clear that they too were investigating FTX's dealings. The legal jeopardy was rising. Bankman-Fried apologized for the crisis and stated on Twitter that FTX did not have the money to meet customer withdrawals. According to him, the crisis had been caused by a failure to label trades and assets correctly, and this led FTX to inaccurate liquidity and debt ratios. In the same Twitter post, he announced that Alameda, the trading firm he also ran, would be winding down their trading operation. It was a dramatic turn of events that had the entire cryptocurrency industry on edge. Then on November 11th, Bankman-Fried stepped down from his position in the company. He was replaced by John Ray, who administered the bankruptcy of the dreaded Enron Corporation in the early 2000s. The news came as a shock to many as it was announced that FTX had filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection on that same day. According to the bankruptcy filings, the company had assets in the range of $10 to $50 billion and liabilities around the same range. But it wasn't just FTX that was part of these proceedings. The bankruptcy filing revealed that roughly 130 other affiliated companies and outside companies were also involved. Every day that passed by, the case became more complex and sprawling. It will probably take years to resolve. To add to the misfortune, just a few hours of declaring bankruptcy, FTX announced that it had been victim of transactions that were not authorized by the company, aka a hack, and that it would be moving its digital assets to cold storage for security purposes. It was suspected that around $477 to $505 million had been taken from FTX in the quote-unquote hack. Some even say it was an inside job, and others say it was the government of the Bahamas who withdrew the money for safekeeping. If the hack or inside job theories are true, it was a staggering amount and one that would only add to the company's already formidable liabilities. It was a crisis that was shaking the entire cryptocurrency industry to its core. And by the middle of the month, FTX had warned investors to not add money to their exchange. The consequences of the FTX debacle for the industry would take time to play out, but it was clear that the impact would be felt for some time to come. This was by far the largest exchange failure in the cryptocurrency space. FTX's fall will most certainly drive away investors who were already not so sure about cryptocurrencies in the first place. I don't blame them. The FTX fall is frightful. The sad part of all this is that the customers on the FTX platform may never recover all their assets, if any. Many put their life savings into FTX, and now it may be lost. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, or the SEC, and other regulators may see the collapse of FTX as the opening they need to heap more regulatory scrutiny on cryptocurrencies. And Congress may see this as a time to tamp down the industry. Now the thing is, FTX's customers are not the only ones who were collateral damage here. Other companies who invested in FTX are also collateral damage, and their customers are as well. Essentially, it's a shit show. So what happened to Bankman-Fried and his minions? What is going on with them now? So let's just back up for one moment. Sam Bankman-Fried was eventually arrested in the Bahamas on fraud charges. The U.S. Attorney of the Southern District of New York had indicted him, alleging that he had committed some of the largest financial crimes in American history. He was eventually jailed without bail in the Bahamas, awaiting extradition to the U.S., which he had planned to fight. As the case against him unfolded, more and more shocking details emerged. According to the court-appointed FTX CEO John Ray, the exchange had practiced no bookkeeping and had engaged in old-fashioned embezzlement. It looked like not only did FTX use customer funds for unauthorized trading, but also used the money to lead lavish lifestyles, buying mansions and other items. The whole affair was a tangled web of deceit and betrayal. It was unbelievable. In a matter of days, the company's valuation had plummeted to near zero, dragging Bankman-Fried's net worth down with it. When interviewed by the New York Times columnist Andrew Ross Sorkin during the Deal Book Summit on November 30th, the former CEO admitted that he had now maybe $100,000 left in his bank account. As the days went on, more and more lawsuits were filed. There was a class action lawsuit that was filed in Florida alleging that Sam Bankman-Fried created the fraudulent crypto scheme and that other high-profile individuals consorted with him. Now the thing is that these high-profile people were celebrities like Stephen Curry, Shaquille O'Neal, Naomi Osaka, Larry David, and Kevin O'Leary, just to name a few. According to the lawsuit, these celebrities had allegedly helped him facilitate his plan, which was designed to take advantage of unsophisticated investors from across the country. Now, I would like to say that these people were paid advertisers. They were advertising for him. They most likely did not know there was a fraud. And in general, celebrities don't necessarily dig deep into the backgrounds of the companies they do advertisements for. And they wouldn't have been able to dig that deeply into FTX anyway, since the information provided them was not accurate, and there was no way to know that. So I'm wondering if this lawsuit against the celebrities is going to pan out, or even if it's justified. As details of the case emerged, people were shocked by the sheer scale of the alleged fraud. It came to light that FTX didn't even have any formal processes in place, and that big decisions were made via chat, and emojis were used to dictate if a decision was accepted or not. That is insane. If the allegations were true, this was a crime of unprecedented proportions, one that had ensnared some of the most famous and respected names in the world. As the legal battles raged on, the public is waiting with bated breath to see what's going to happen next. Who's going to come out on top? And would the defendants be able to clear their names? Or would they all go down in flames? Bankman-Fried was eventually indicted by the U.S. District Court in Manhattan on 8 counts, including securities fraud and money laundering. He's being represented by the white-collar criminal attorney Mark S. Cohen, a partner of Cohen and Gresser. Cohen was the former federal prosecutor and had previously been part of the legal team of Ghislaine Maxwell, the convicted sex trafficker. Caroline Ellison, who had headed the FTX-affiliated Alameda Research, had hired Washington-based law firm Wilmer, Cutler, Pickering, Hale, and Dorr to represent her. With such high-powered legal teams on both sides, it was clear that this was going to be a fierce and heated battle. Because not only are they defending themselves, but they are most likely going to testify against each other. At a court hearing on December 22nd, a federal judge decided to release Bankman-Fried from custody after his lawyers and government prosecutors agreed to a staggering $250 million bond, which by all accounts would be the largest ever in history. But as of the time of this video, only his parents' home, worth about $4 million, has been used as collateral, and they have a few co-signers on the bond as well. No payment was actually made, and that's because this form of bond is called a personal recognizance bond, in which he promises to show up for his trial dates, otherwise he is on the hook for $250 million. So although the largest bond ever, it doesn't really cost him or his parents or the co-signers anything up front. As part of the deal, the 30-year-old former crypto executive will be under house arrest in the Northern California area where his parents' home is. He will be wearing an electronic monitoring device and be subject to regular mental and substance abuse counseling. His passport was also seized. There were a few other people involved in this, and their cases will also be in the public light. This is just really sad. It was such a shocking fall from grace, and no one could quite believe how quickly it all unraveled. I've even looked at FTX and said, wow, this might bring legitimacy to the cryptocurrency space because it brought many different facets of the crypto space together in a uniform platform. Although I could not invest in FTX because I was a New York resident at the time, it seemed like everything was fine. And of course, I couldn't have known, we couldn't have known, that it was a house of cards because we didn't have access to their books. And so, it's just a really, really sad ending. In a future video, I will discuss what I think will be next for the crypto space after FTX, and it actually might not be all that bad. See you then.